Hello and welcome, I am Suyash Maheshwari and you are watching Last Tick here on News 9, where we bring to you the lowdown of the day's action on Dalal Street. Now, Indian markets kicked off the week on a high. In fact, to call it a start on the high would be an understatement as Nifty surged over 1.5%, its best single day run since December 4, 2023. Now, in just one session, Nifty has pared almost all of its previous week's losses. In fact, the market has now retraced almost 61.8% of that entire fall from record high levels of 22,124 to the recent low made around 21,137 mark. Ultimately, Nifty settled about 1.8% higher above the 21,700 mark. Sensex too witnessed one of its best sessions since early December, adding over 1,200 points on Monday to close marginally below the 72,000 marks, just about 60 points shy of it. Now, what makes a stronger case for a short-term trend reversal, from bearish to bullish, is the rally that we saw in the broader markets. That also moved in line with the headliners. Nifty Mid-Cap 100 surged about 1.63% to close just shy of the 48,000 mark, whereas the Small Cap 100 index surged about 1.5% to close above the 15,600 mark. In fact, the small cap index came within a stone's throw away from its record high levels. The index surged as much as 15,638, whereas the record high lies above the 15,658 mark. However, there is some concerns for the bulls, and that is the surge in volatility. India VIX, now that surged by about 13%, in fact over 13% at 15.68 mark, and in terms of levels, this was the highest close for India VIX since March of last year. So perhaps one needs to be watchful of that. But then again, you would expect volatility to remain elevated because we have lots of events both on domestic as well as global front this week. We have the Fed's, the US Federal Reserve's policy decision that comes out on Wednesday, as well as the interim budget which is scheduled to take place on Thursday. And not to forget that we are in the midst of the earnings season, with a lot of heavyweight companies like your ITC, Bajaj Finance, Maruti Suzuki and SBI, to name a few, they also will be reporting their earnings this week. So lots of events this week, and perhaps that's why we are seeing volatility spike up. But let's talk about what led to today's rally. First, it was the rally in the heavyweights. Several index heavyweights surged in today's trade, which has strengthened the up move for the headliners. Reliance Industries, for instance, alone was responsible for nearly 40% of the entire Nifty's about 400-point rally. The index contributed about 150 points, and the Nifty on the whole surged by about 385 points on Monday. Now, this was followed by HDFC Bank, Larsen and Toubro, Kotak, ONGC, and they all contributed somewhere around 5 to 10% each as well. Second factor that led to today's rally was Nifty Bank. Remember, the banking pack has been the weakest segment of our market for many months now. But today, the index, surged by about 1.3% or so. And remember, Nifty Bank contributes to about 35 to 36% of the entire weightage on Nifty. So, a rally in Nifty Bank would obviously lead to a rally in Nifty. And even if we look at the index constituents, of the 12 stocks that are listed in Nifty Bank, 11 participated in today's price surge. Also, the Asian cues are looking fairly positive. Most markets across Asia inched higher on Monday, which also aided the sentiment for domestic equities. Japan's benchmark Nikkei, Hong Kong's Hang Seng, South Korea's Kospi, all of them surged over 1% or around 1% or so in today's session. But let's also look at some of the other sectors, because it was not just Nifty Bank that participated in today's rally, but other sectors such as your auto pack and the metal pack, the PSU banking pack, realty pack, all of them surged about 1.5% in today's trade. And remember that Nifty has been the trend, the overall trend had turned bearish, and we have seen sharp spike in volatility where the market would rise by 1% or so and then fall from there on about 1% or so. But today's price action, we have broken above significant retracement levels. As I was mentioning earlier, 21,747, which was a 61.8% retracement level of that entire fall from the record levels to the recent low. Now that had become a critical resistance zone, as was also indicated by some of our experts. But does that really mean that the kind of bounce back, does that indicate a reversal in sentiment, or is it the dead cat bounce? That is yet to see. And through the course of the week, because again, we are having a full 5-day trading week for the first time in nearly 2 weeks. Last week was a holiday shortened week. Monday was closed and Friday was also, the markets were shut on account of Republic Day. So just 3 sessions, but a lot of choppiness was seen throughout this session. But good surge in the market, and it's not just the Ambani stocks or Reliance that rallied today, but Adani group of stocks also participated in the rally, and across the board we are seeing heavyweight stocks participating in today's surge. Not just the heavyweight stocks, the broader markets as well. So perhaps that makes a stronger case for the bulls. As you can see, the top Nifty gainers now, these include ONGC, which surged by about 8.9%, almost 9%. Of course, this was on the back of surge in oil prices. Now remember, upstream companies, their profit margins expand once oil prices surge. So that's why we are seeing a good bit of bullish momentum build in the ONGC stock. Reliance also contributed about 7% to today's price action. Coal India was another one which surged by about 6.2%, and Adani Enterprises and Adani Ports from the Adani group of stocks also participated. In fact, was one of the top performers in today's session. They surged by about 6%. Adani Port, in the case of Adani Ports, they were up about 4% or so. Let's also look at the top losers today, because the overall breadth of the market was favoring bulls. About 40 stocks rallied in today's session, whereas about just 10 stocks fell in today's trade. So overall, the momentum is heavily in favor of the bulls. But then again, we have to see how this rally continues, or this momentum continues, because we have seen a lot of volatility in the market in the last few sessions. As I mentioned, it's been a choppy couple of weeks for the market, at least since the start of January. And remember, January series overall, the market had lost about 2% or so. In fact, it was one of the worst January series in the last 6 years. And January overall has that seasonality effect, and January has been a weak month for the Indian markets as well. But we have started on a bullish note. The February series has started on a bullish note with a good momentum seen in Nifty, Sensex, the broader markets in general as well. But with that, let's also bring on board my friend and colleague Karthik Malhotra, who joins us here. Karthik, great bit of bullish momentum, and on a day like where we are seeing a lot of turmoil build up in the Asian market, especially with Evergrande.
That's exactly. So I think we will have to wait and see how this whole Evergrande story plays out in China, because remember, Suyash, the ruling has actually come from the court in Hong Kong, and it is actually 90% of Evergrande's business is in the mainland of China. So one thing that we need to notice right now is the story really going to be accepted? Is the verdict of liquidation which has come from Hong Kong get accepted in mainland China? That is number one. I think the second part to that question really is that even if China were to accept it and mainland China were to go ahead with the liquidation, is a company as large as Evergrande, even if you want to liquidate it, find enough buyers, even if it is a distressed sale? Remember, as of 2021, it had about $300 billion in debt. So who would want to purchase a company with such a large debt book, with hardly any sales in real estate going on in China, and these ghost towns, ghost cities with buildings under construction, some of them constructed but nobody living in them? That is largely going to be a big problem for China in general, not just for Evergrande the company. So I think the big question that really arises right now, Suyash, is that is China going to accept it? If China accepts the Hong Kong verdict of liquidation, who is going to be able to come and bail out Evergrande? And if it does bail out Evergrande, then at what price? And is that going to be enough to give that fillip to the property market in China. All of that will weigh in at some point on the Chinese indices, even though Shanghai and the Hang Seng both have been in the green today. And when I checked last, you know, the Evergrande news has not really disrupted the markets. They haven't, it doesn't seem to yet be a layman moment for Evergrande. But will it play out eventually? Maybe markets had already factored in that this is in any case a debt-ridden company. It doesn't have enough avenues to go ahead and come back to life.
And I mean, we are talking about the property slump overall across the board in China, and we are the Chinese government is working on a stimulus package to the tune of about $280 billion to save its stock markets. When will that stimulus package come from the property sector?
And more importantly, Suyash, I mean, the big question is, when is that going to come out, right? The second question is that with or without stimulus, the growth that China has reported, 5.2% over a low base of just about 3% or so, is that number worth believing or not? But even if the stimulus were to come, is stimulus the right way forward for any economy to go ahead and start reflecting growth? So growth on the basis of stimulus in any case is inflated growth. So $280 billion, large amount of money. It may give a boost to certain sectors, certain industries. But I think what you really require right now is the faith of the Chinese citizens and the people living in China to restart consumption, which has been elusive so far.
All right, let's also bring on Mr. Sudeep Bandyopadhyay to this conversation. Sir, I want to begin by asking, what do you make of this price action that we saw today? You know, does that indicate a reversal in the sentiment, or is it just a dead cat bounce?
Well, I don't think it's a dead cat bounce. I think the sentiment, under the surface was always positive. It was waiting for right triggers. Today, the market got few triggers. One is, I think, this entire excitement around Reliance. There are multiple things in the market. I'm not sure which one is true or which one is not. Incentive forthcoming budget incentive on green energy, or the demerger of Jio, or the retail business. Something is happening definitely. The kind of move we have seen in Reliance definitely indicates some move in the offing. On the other hand, there was some brokerage reports on Adani Enterprises. That's again a large company with large market cap. There was some positive movement. We have seen movement in the oil and marketing companies, IOC, BPCL, good results by BPCL, IOC, ONGC. I think, generally, there were a lot of positive excitement in the market today. Also, I believe that, fundamentally nothing had changed in Indian markets. FIIs were selling, and at some point of time, like Friday, Thursday, when we went home, the FIIs net short position was more than a lakh contracts. And when FIIs are so short, it in a way indicates that there will be a turnaround, sharp turnaround soon. And that's what pretty much happened. That's what I believe.
And I want to spend some time on the Reliance industry. You know, the stock had one of its best sessions in nearly 3 years. It has crossed a market cap of 19 lakh crore, in fact 19.6 lakh crore as the market closed. You said something about demerger of the telecommunications business as well as the retail business. Is that a buzz that's going around? Because we are not picking up anything of in that line of thought.
There is a buzz in the market, Suresh, definitely. In fact, if you look at sum of parts, at different points of time, they have got investors in retail. I think the last round happened at $100 billion valuation. Whereas, Jio at multiple points of time at different valuations, marquee investors have come in. So if you look at the sum of parts valuation, I think you will get a much bigger figure than what it is quoting today. Of course, the traditional business also has been performing pretty well. Leave aside the petchem piece, which is globally, the petchem prices are depressed, so it is not doing well. But all the other segments of the traditional O2C business also is doing well. And of course, there is that entire green energy pack where there is a lot of excitement. There are some other green energy companies which are getting valued at a very, very heavy premium. So, Reliance with the commitment to invest 75,000 crores in the green energy segment, and I think the sum of part valuation definitely is much higher. So, there is definitely a demerger in the offing. Now, whether it will happen now or 6 months down the line or couple of years' time, it's very difficult to predict. It will depend on a whole lot of other calculations, which I'm sure the company will do. But eventually, that is definitely going to happen.
All right, and it was not just Ambani group of companies. In fact, another Adani group of stocks also rallied today, and it was on the back of the foreign brokerage that claimed that India's path to self-reliance runs through Adani group of stock. Now, the same brokerage expects Adani Enterprises, the shares to rally from about somewhere around 50% from Thursday's closing levels, and it has also mentioned, in its report that there is a lack of coverage on Adani group of stocks that is serving as a hindrance to investor education. Do you agree with that entire line of thought, and what's your overall opinion on the Adani stable of stocks?
Well, that there is a lack of brokerage coverage is definitely correct. And of course, that leads to, a lack of knowledge amongst the general investors about the Adani group of companies. This is absolutely correct, and this has been felt at multiple points of time. I think the only company which gets covered by many brokerages is Adani Ports. Of course, that's a very strong, solid company. I'm not counting Ambuja and ACC. They have historically been covered by pretty much all the brokerage houses, but rest of the companies don't get covered. So that is of course correct. As far as Adani Enterprise valuation is concerned, yes, if things go right and if the India continues to progress the way it is progressing, the airports business definitely deserves a look, and that's inside Adani Enterprises. At some point of time, that will get demerged and listed. You have the other miscellaneous energy, solar, wind, and whole lot of other things within Adani Enterprises. That again is a fit candidate for probably a separate listing. And of course, there is this entire residual businesses. The entire model of Adani Enterprises is unique because they incubate businesses within Adani Enterprises and then they take it public. So it's a good structure as things stand today. And of course, if you look at it at sum of parts valuation, I think Adani Enterprise probably deserves a better valuation. And the brokerage report, Cantor Fitzgerald report, points out to that. And now, overall, I think the valuation wise, a lot of the group companies are valued aggressively. So I won't like to get there. But Adani Port, yes, it's a good company and long-term investors can always buy into that. Ambuja, ACC, again, great companies, investors can look at that. Now, the timing may or may not be right today, but at some point of time, these all become right stocks to get into because they're fundamentally strong companies.
All right, Adani group of companies look fundamentally strong, and Adani Enterprises, Ports, Ambuja, ACC are on, are some of the stocks that you can add in your portfolio. That's a word coming in from Mr. Sudeep Bandyopadhyay. Sir, thank you for joining us here on Lasik. Always a pleasure speaking to you. But that's all we have in this edition of Lasik. Stay tuned with us as we'll be right back with Business Plus.
तो जब हम करेंगे तो पता लग ही जाएगा। सलमान खान का करेंगे, मारेंगे यहीं जोधपुर में मारेंगे तो पता लग जाएगा।
This is someone who is sitting inside our jails and is still very obviously and openly running and possibly the largest organized criminal operation in the country.
Student organization of Punjab University में सोपू का